Code Explain says hi. Today we're going to build a weather app using ReactJS. And before that, I want to say that it has been a long time since I uploaded the last video. And now that I'm back, I'm planning to make videos, more videos, and also create some courses. Courses that I'll upload to my channel and also to Udemy. So I want you guys to keep supporting me like you always did. And thanks in advance. Now, let's start with the preview of what we're going to be creating today. So this is how our application will look like. So this is a header, and we show here the location or the city, and here we have an input to search for a specific city. And then here we have this button to toggle the theme, so between the light and the dark theme. By default, we use the user system theme. And then we have here a gear which opens this menu here, which is the settings. We only have one setting for now, which is the measurement system. You can see here that the temperature is in Celsius, and that's because we used auto for the measurement system setting. And this means that the API will automatically determine the user's measurement system based on their location. Now, if I click, for example, on US, this will load the weather in Fahrenheit. So this is the imperial system. Now, these two widgets here show the weather or the current weather. And then here, these will show the hourly forecast. So this is the hour by hour forecast. We have like 70 hours forecast, I guess. And then we have here a 21 days forecast. So this is a day by day forecast. Now here at the top, we can search for a city. Let's say New York. If I click on that, this will load the weather for that location. Well, that's it for the preview of the application. And I'm going to try my best to explain every single line of code. And let's get started. Well, before we start, you're going to need the starter template. So let's go to the repo on GitHub. You'll find the link down in the description. So you need this if you want to follow along with me, if you want to type in the code with me. Now, we have this main branch. We only have here the README file. And then we need to go to the starter template. And this is where our starter template lives. Now, let's go and copy the link to the repo and then open the terminal. So I'm going to open this in the desktop, and now let's go and run git clone, and I want to clone the starter template branch. So I'm going to use -b, then starter template, the name of the branch, and then the URL of the repo. I'm going to hit enter, and this will clone the repo. Now I'm going to cd into the folder and then open this in VS Code. Once opened, we have this public folder. We have the index.html cleaned up, and then we have this source file with only 2 JavaScript files. So I have removed all the other files. So we have the app.js file. I removed all the code inside, and I added this to headings. And then we have this index.js file. Well, the only important thing in this starter template is the styles folder. So I already have typed in all the styles we needed for the application. So we don't need to bother ourselves with CSS. And that's because I'm going to cover just ReactJS logic. So we don't need any styling. Now let's go and open the built-in terminal in VS Code. And then before we run npm start, we need first to run npm install to install these packages or these dependencies. So React, React DOM, and React scripts. And now that the installation has finished, let's go and run npm start. And that's our application looking so great. Now let's go and create the components. And now I have put these two windows side by side so you can see better what I'm doing. Now let's go into the source folder, then the app.js. And I'm going to remove these two headings. And then I'm going to call 2 components, header, and then main. So this is the 2 components we need in our application. So we have a header and a main. Now let's go and hit save, and this will throw an error because we don't have these 2 here. Now let's go into source and then create a new folder called components, and then create the header.js file, rfce, and this will create the component for us. Now I need to use here a class name called header for the styling, and hit save. Now let's go again and create the main.js component, then rfce, and we don't need again the import, then the class name called main, and That's it. Now let's go and import this two here. So I'm going to import the header. So import header from components, then header, and let's import main as well from components, then main. If I hit save, you can see we have the header and the main. Now let's go and style our application by importing the styles from styles components, then app.css, and you can see it says compiled with problems because we didn't install yet the module Sass. Now let's go and open a new terminal and then run npm install Sass as a dev dependency. So I'm going to hit enter, and now we have installed Sass. Let's go into the old one where we run in Webpack. Let's go and stop our server and then run npm start again. So you can see now that the styles have been applied. You can see this from the font that has been changed. Now I'm gonna go and import the styles for the header and the main. So let's go into the header, import the styles. So from styles, then components, then header. Hit save, and you can see the header there. Now let's go into the main.js file and then import the styles from styles again, then components, then main.css. Well, you already know that we have two themes, the dark theme and the light theme. So if I go here into the app component, then add this class name app-dark, hit save, we can see the dark version of our application. If I use light, you can see the light version of our application. So I'm going to go and create a variable here, or a constant called dark. I'm going to set this to false. Now let's go and make this depend on that variable. So I'm going to use a template literal here, and then I'm going to say app, and then we will choose if it's the light or the dark theme based on this constant here. So I'm going to say here dark. So if dark is true, then we need to use dark, else if it's false, we're going to use light. So I'm going to hit save, and this will be light. If I make this true, then this will be dark. So that's how we're going to play with the dark and light themes. And now we're using just a constant. Later on, we're going to use the context to manipulate the theme. Now let's go into the header component. So inside the header component, we have three components. So we have here the location, we have the search input, and we have here the settings, the dark theme, toggler, and the gear to open the settings. So I'm going to create three components. The first one is place, the second one is search, and the third one is settings. Now I'm going to hit save and error again because we need to create these. Now let's go into components, create place.js, and then RFCE again, remove the import, and hit save. Now let's add a class name place, and then let's go to the components again, create search.js, and then RFCE, remove that, and then go and create a new one called settings.js, and then RFC again, remove this, hit save, and let's close all these. Let's close the app.js one. Now let's go here and import these. So I'm going to the top, then import place from place, and then import search from search, and then import settings from settings. And that's it. Search is not defined. Search is not defined. Why it's not defined? So we have search here. We export default search. So it's not defined. Let's refresh, and we have that there. Now we have place, search, then the settings. Now let's go into the place and add the right markup. So I have here a Bootstrap icon, and then we have a b tag. Inside we have the location, let's say London, and then we have the country, let's say United Kingdom, So we have, or we need the icon here. So let's go to the Bootstrap Icons website. So once you are in icons.getbootstrap.com, so you will need to install the icons using this line. So I'm going to copy this. Let's go back to VS Code, open a terminal, then npm I bootstrap icons. Once installed, let's go to Bootstrap, then search for GeoGuess, and this is the one we're going to use, and that's the code for it. So I'm going to copy that and then paste it in here. So that's the icon. Let's hit save, refresh, and nothing's happening because we need to import the CSS file for the Bootstrap icons. So let's go to the app.js, and just right after this import, I'm going to import. So let's say Bootstrap icons, then font, and then the Bootstrap icons.css. And you can see that we have now that icon there. Now let's go into place. We need to add a space here. So I'm going to hit save, and that's looking great. Now let's go and start our search component, or add the markup for the search component. So I'm going to go to the search component. So here I'm going to use a React fragment, and then I'm going to add a dev with the class name search container, and then I'm going to add a dev with the class name search icon. So this is where we will put the icon. Then I'm going to add a dev with the class name search input. So this is where we have the input. So it's going to be just an HTML input. So I will add some attributes here, like type is going to be text, and then the name is going to be search city, and then or search place, then placeholder is going to be search city, and then 3 dots, and that's it for now. So that's all I'm going to have here. So we have the search city here. Now let's go and import the style for the search component. So I'm going to styles, then components, then search file, and now you have our search city. We still need this icon. So the icon here is going to be bi search, and that's it. Now we have our search icon. Now let's go for the settings. So inside the settings, I will have here a dev with the class name settings. So we have here 2 devs, one with the class name theme toggler, and another one with the settings button class name. So inside the theme toggler, we will have another dev with the class name theme buttons, I guess. So theme buttons, and then inside here we have another dev with the class name light theme button, and inside we have this icon. So it's going to be a class name with the bi class name, then it's going to be sun. You can see it there. And this now have another button. I'm just going to copy this. It's going to be dark theme, and then it's going to be moon instead. So now we have these 2 buttons here to toggle the theme. Now inside the settings button, we have just the icon for now, and that's going to be bi, then gear, and that's it. Now let's go into the top and import the styles for this. So import styles, then components, then settings. If I hit save, you can see them there. So we have our settings button and this one here. So if it is the dark theme, we're going to show the moon. If it's the light theme, we're going to show the sun. So how we're going to like make that happen? We're going to add another class called active here, and I have here a typo, so it's not ldark, it's just dark. I'm going to hit save. Now you can see the sun coming. If I remove that and say active for dark theme, you can see now the moon there. Well, I guess we have finished the starter markup for the header. So we have hard-coded everything right now, but later on we're going to make this dynamic. So we're going to use React state, etc. Now that's it for the header. Let's move on to the next component. Now it's time to create the current weather component. So let's go on the components and create the current weather.js RFCE. I don't need to import React. I'm going to use the name as the class name. I'm going to hit save, and let's go and actually use that under main. So current weather, and hit save. Now we shall see if we do here something like test. Yeah. Now before we create the markup for this component, it's actually the time to go and get the data from the API. So here's the API we're going to be using. It's called AI Weather by Meteosource, and you're gonna find the link down in the description. Once you're here, just click on basic. That's a basic plan and it's for free. The only problem is it's a limited plan. We got just 100 requests per month, which is going to vanish in a blink of an eye. But that's not a problem because we're not going to make any real requests to the API for now. We're just going to use Rapid API to get the data. Well, to start, you should click on subscribe here to subscribe to this basic plan and then go back. So here under the endpoints, click on with the forecast endpoints, then current. So this is the current endpoint. Now let's go to params and then choose London as a place ID. I'm going to get rid of these two here and then click on test endpoint. So this is basically what we're going to get if we make a real request to the API from our application. But we're not going to do that because it's a limited plan. So I'm going to go and copy the JSON file, and then I'm going to go back to my application here, and under source I'm going to create a function called, or a folder first called API, and then inside is going to be an index.js, and alongside with the current weather.json. So this is what I have copied from the Rapid API, and you can see we have an object with some properties and then the property current, which actually has the data we need. So I'm not gonna do any real request. We're just going to use this local file, JSON file. Now let's go into index.js and let's go and import that JSON file. So I'm going to say, or call the JavaScript variable current weather from, and then it's going to be current weather.json. Now let's go and create a function called get current weather, and this will basically just return the current weather that current. Let's hit save and let's go and export our get current weather function. So now whenever I call this, I will get the current weather that current data. Now let's go and close that and import the function here in the current weather. So I'm going to use import and then get, let's just say from API first, from API, and then let's say get current weather. Now that's the function. Let's go here and create a const called data and then call this function current weather. Now let's see if we console log the data. I'm gonna go back here and you can see that we have an object with cloud cover, feels like, etc. Just the things we need. So let's go and destructure the data. So I'm just gonna go here and say const then equals data and then get the properties we need. So we need cloud cover, then feels like, temperature, humidity, the icon number, and we need also the precipitation object, then the summary as well, and also the temperature, the real temperature, and then the UV index, the visibility as well, and then the wind object. Let's hit save and we're done. So let's go now and render this data here. So now let's go here and then I need a div with the class name called temperature and then another one with the class name called other info. Now if you remember from the preview, we have two widgets in the current weather component. So we have one on the left and the other one on the right. So let's work on the first one for the temperature. And now inside the temperature, I'm going to add first a div with the class name weather icon. So this is where I will render the icon. It's just going to be an image. And let's go to the API website and get the icons. And now once you are on the API website, you're going to find the link in the description, click on documentation, and then scroll down till you find the icons. So here are the icons. Now click on this link to download their sets of icons. Then I'm going to open this zip file and then copy the whole folder. Let's go now to the desktop, React Weather app. Then inside the public folder, I'm going to create a folder called dest, and then I'm going to paste that inside. And now I have pasted that Weather Icons folder. Let's go inside. You can see we have here 5 sets of icons. I am actually using the 4th set, so this is the one I will be using. You are free to choose any one from the 5 sets. So let's go back to our application or VS Code. Now let's go here and use source, and let's type in the right link of the weather icon. So I'm going to say process.env.public URL. So now I'm accessing this public folder from here, and then because I need to add in the test folder and then go down to sets 4, then peg, then actually the icons, I need to use here a template literal. So I'm going to go and use some backticks, then a $, then let's say test folder, then weather icons, and then it's going to be the set 04, and then peg, and then $.png. So all the files are PNG files. Now it's just going to be the icon number. I'm going to hit save, and you can see the icon there. Now we also need to add an alt, and it's going to be just the summary, and that's it. Now under the weather icon is going to be the temperature value. So I'm going to use a dev with the class name value, and then it's going to be a real temperature, and then a feels like temperature. So let's go and use these here. So it's going to be temperature. Then I'm gonna go and hard code this unit here for now, and then here I'm going to use feels like temperature, then degrees Celsius, and this would say feels like. I'm going to hit save. So that's it. Now let's go here and the value, and add a div with the class summary here, and then use the summary. And that's it for this widget. Now let's go for the other info. So if you remember, we have here like 6 other info. Now I'm going to go to the top, and I'm going to create an array here that has all these 6 components here. So I'm just going to go and copy that over, and here it is. So we have here an array with objects inside. So we have 6 objects. The first one is the widget for the precipitation, so that's the name precipitation. The icon is called droplet. For this one is called wind. So I just went to the Get Bootstrap Icons website and searched for the right icons. Then here the values, I'm going to use the precipitation.total for the precipitation, the wind.speed, here just humidity, UV index, and cloud cover with the right units hard coded for now. Now let's go and use this array and go here and then map over that array. And now let's go and create the markup. So a div with the class name, let's say widget. That's it. Now let's go here and destructure our object here. So I'm gonna get all of these, so the ID, the icon, etc. So let's say ID, icon, and then the name, the value, and then the unit. So let's go in here, and then I'm going to add a div with the class name widget container, and then inside another one with the class name info, and then a class name div with the class name icon. So here is the icon, so an I tag with the class name, so bi, and then the icon. And I actually need to use JavaScript and the backticks. So if I hit save for now, we shall see the icons. And let's go after the icon and add the value. So the value is going to be just value, and then next to it the unit. And now just outside the info dev, we're going to add another one with the class name, and then render the name of the info. So that's it. We have here precipitation, wind, etc. All the names are there, the values alongside with their units, and that's great. And now if I open the console, we're going to get this warning saying that each child in the list should have a unique key. So we need just to go here and then add the key. This must be unique, so the ID is unique. So let's hit save, refresh. If I open the console log, the warning is gone, and that's it for the current weather. And now it's time to create the hourly forecast and the 21 days forecast components. So let's go into our components folder, then create the forecast.js component, CE. We don't need to import React. Now let's go to the main and call the forecast component. And actually I'm going to call it twice. So the first one type is going to be hourly, and the second one is going to be daily. And then here for the title, I'm going to use here hourly forecast, and this one's going to be the 21 days forecast. And we need also to pass down the data that we're going to get from the API. So let's go and print the data. So here on the API page, we're going to go to the weather forecast endpoints, then hourly. Let's choose again London, and then test endpoint, and copy the JSON file. So you can see here we have the hourly property, then we have the data, which is an array, which have 120 items, which means 120 hours forecast. So let's go now into our API folder, then create this hourly forecast.json file. I'm going to paste in what I have copied before. And now let's go and bring in the daily forecast. So let's click here on daily and browse again London. Let's get rid of this, and then let's go and test endpoint. Again, we have this property daily, and then data, which is an array, and 21 days forecast. Let's copy this. Let's get back here and create the daily forecast.json. And that's it for the data. Now let's go into our API index.js file. Let's import the daily forecast from daily forecast, and let's import the hourly forecast from the hourly forecast.json. And now let's go and create two more functions. So get daily forecast, return daily forecast dot daily, and then that data. That's an array. Now let's go and do the same thing for the get hourly forecast. So I'm going to return hourly forecast dot hourly dot data, and let's export the functions. So get daily and then get hourly forecast. And that's it for the index.js file. Now let's go in here and bring those functions. So import from API. I need to get hourly forecast and the get daily forecast. So let's call this daily. Let's go back here and call this daily as well. And let's call this daily. Now in the main, we need to go and call these two functions. So get hourly forecast and get daily forecast, and that's the data for each forecast component. Now let's go into our forecast component. I'm going to use the name as the class name, and here I'm going to go and create a forecast container dev, and then inside I will add an h3 heading with the title. So I first need to destructure the props. So I'm going to get the title, then the type, and then data. And now let's go and import the style for this component. So styles, components, and then forecast. And then under the heading, I'm going to add a div with a class name called widget container. Well, let's call it widget container. And then inside, I'm going to map over my data array. So data.map, and for each single data in every single day or every single hour, I'm going to go and render a dev, and then inside the dev I'm going to check if the type is hourly. I'm going to go and, let's say, render hourly forecast widget, which I didn't create yet, and here I'm going to add the daily, or render the daily forecast widget, and hit save. Now let's go and create those two components. So I have the hourly forecast widget.js RFCE. Let's go and create another one, the daily forecast widget.js RFCE, and that's it for these two. Let's go back here and import them first. So import hourly forecast widget from hourly forecast widget, and then let's import the daily forecast widget from the daily forecast widget, and you can see we have them here. Now let's go here and pass this down to both of them. So single data, that's the data for this one and this one. Well, next we're going to create the logic for hourly forecast widget component. Now let's go and create the hourly forecast widget. So I'm going to go and destructure the props and get the data. So the data for each hour, which we passed down from the forecast. And now let's go back here and then just console log the data to see what we have, and then open the console. So we'd have a lot. Now I would get the things that I need. So I'm just going to go and destructure the data. Now let's go and get first the date, then the icon, then the summary, and then the temperature, and then the precipitation, I guess, and then the wind. And that's it. That's all I need for now. Now let's go here and use a class name widget. Then here I'm gonna go and use a div with the class name day to actually show the date. Then another one for the time to show the time. So you can see it now here, although it's looking ugly, but we're going to fix that. And then we're going to use icon and temp here to render the icon and the temperature. For the icon, I guess we're going to use the same thing we did here in the current weather. So I'm just going to go and cut this and instead create a component called weather icon. I'm going to pass in the icon number as a prop, so icon num, and then the alt is going to be the summary here. Now this is not, so let's go and close that div. Now the way the icon is not defined, let's go into components and create it with icon.js, RFCE, roll the whole thing, and here I need to paste in the image. Now let's go and get the icon number and as well as the summary. So for the icon number, it's going to go here. So the icon number, and the summary is going to go as alt, not summary. It's going to be alt. So the current weather. Now let's actually call this summary. Summary, then summary here. Same thing for here. So now let's go in here and import our weather icon from weather icon, and there it is. Now let's go back here and then use the same weather icon. It's imported automatically. It's great. Now for the icon number, it's going to be just icon, this one here, and then for the summary is going to be the summary, and let's hit save, and you can see the icon there. Now for the temperature, I'm going to just render temperature with hard-coded degrees Celsius, and that's it there. Now let's actually round this again, math that round, and then outside of this too, here we need to render precipitation. So it's going to be, let's actually round this again, round, and then it's going to be precipitation dot total with right unit, and that's it there. The last thing is going to be the wind. So the first thing is going to be the wind speed. So again, math that round, and then the wind dot speed. So this wind here has four properties. One of them is the speed, and then let's say mile per hour. Then just below we need the direction. So direction is going to be an icon, so class name BE, then BE, and then I'm going to use the icon I will use for send and then fill. So now you can see that the icon is like 45 degrees tilt. So we need now to make it head to the north first. So I'm going to use the inline styling. So I'm going to use the transform property and then use rotate to rotate it by -45 degrees. And now it looks great. Now if I go to the top and show you what the wind object here looks like, so I'm going to open the console, and there it is. It has this angle here, so that's the angle of this icon here, which represents the direction of the wind. So I'm gonna go here and use JavaScript to calculate that. So -45 degrees plus the wind that angle. If I hit save, you can see now that we are having the right angle. And now it's time to go and fix this mess here. So let's go to the top and do some formatting. So I'm going to say date format. So I'm going to create two objects. The first one is now. So the now time, we need to know the now time. So it's going to have two properties. The first one is the day, and the second one is going to be the time. And for both to format the date, I'm going to use the intl object. So I'm going to use here new first, and then date time format, and this takes in the local. So the local is going to be the navigator, that language, and there's some options. So how do you want to format the day? So for the day, I want to use a weekday that's short, and then for the day, the day, it's going to be a 2-digit number, and then for the month it's going to be a 2-digit number as well. and what I want to format is the new date, which is going to be the now date. And then I'm going just to copy the whole thing and paste it in here. Now for the time, I want the hour to be 2-digit, a 2-digit format, and then for the minute, it's going to be the same thing, and that's it. Now let's go and console log now and see what we get. So we have the day wet, then 26 June, and the time now is 19 hours and 4 minutes. And before we continue, something I want to do is, this is the time for the weather. So it's always 18 hours and 0 minutes, always. So I'm just going to go and do the same thing for the now time, because we're going to compare these times later on. So I'm going to go here and say set minutes to 0. And if I check now, it says now 19:00, and that's what exactly I want. Now let's go and create the same object, but this time it's going to be the weather date, not the now date. So I'm gonna go and use the same format, except here I'm not gonna give it the now time or now date. I'm going to use the weather date here. So I'm gonna pass in the date here, the same thing for this one here, and I'm gonna get rid of this, hit save, and let's use that. So the weather date here, for the date it's going to be day, and here for the time it's going to be that time. I'm gonna hit save, and now you can see 18 hours, 19, 20, 21, etc. Now I don't want to show this date here many times. I actually want to show here today, and then for these here I want to show this date only one time and then not showing it until the next day. So how can I do that? I'm just going to use an if else statement or a ternary operator. So let's do that. So I'm going to say weather date is going to be equal if the weather date is the same as the weather date that day, actually not the whole object. If the weather date that day, which is this one here, this string, is the same as the now date that day, then what I want to do is I want to use today instead. Else I'm not going to use anything for now. So let's check that. You can see now it says today. But I only want to use today if it's the now time. If the now time it matches the weather time. So how can I do that? I'm just going to use an end here. So end the weather that time is the same as the now date that time. If I hit save, you can see now that today is only shown when the weather time is the same as the now time. Now if I go to the next ones, you can see we don't see anything here. So I want to check if it's midnight, then show the weather date day. So how can I do that? Again, instead of this, I'm going to use an if else. So if else now the weather that date that time is midnight. So what I want to do is I'm going to use the weather date that day, and else I'm going to use nothing, an empty string. Now if I go and see, you can see we have now the weekday, day, and the month, and that's great. And I guess that's it for this hourly forecast component. Let's go now next for the days forecast component. Now for the daily forecast widget, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go and destructure the props to get the data. And then let's just console log that data. So I'm going to open the console. Let's open this and then choose the properties we need. So I'm going to go again and destructure the data. And then what I need is the date, of course, then the icon. This is the icon number. And we also need the temperature max, and then the temperature min, and we need the precipitation, and of course we don't need to forget the summary. Now let's go here, and we're actually gonna go and use the same JSX from here. small differences. So here, so we don't want to show the times, and we're going to show the weather icons, so we need to import that. Import weather icon, and let's just keep this empty for now. This is summary, so I actually need to go and say summary, and here as well let's say summary, and let's save. Now let's go back here, and now for the temperature we have two devs, one with the class max and one with the class min. So here I'm going to render the max temperature, and here we're going to render the min temperature. So temperature, so I had a typo here, and then the precipitation, and we don't have the wind info here. So I'm gonna hit save. Let's go back to our project. Now you can see that we have the weather for each day. Now let's go and render the day here. So I'm just gonna go to the hourly forecast, and then I'm going to print this date format objects, paste them in here, and hit save. And we have invalid time value. So let's go and console log this date. Open the console. You can see that the date here is undefined. Let's go and console the data. So the problem here is that we don't have a date property, we have a day property. So let's go and say day instead of date. So let's get rid of this console log, and then let's go and use day instead of date. Hit save, and we're good. So I actually don't need the time, we only gonna show the day without the time. So I'm just gonna go and get rid of this one here, and also this one here. Now let's go and render the weather day. So here I'm gonna go and say weather day dot day, and that's the day. Except for this one, we need to show the today. So how can we do that? Let's go and check. So the weather date dot day is going to be equal to, if the now date dot day is the same as the weather date dot day, we're going to use today, else we're going to use the weather dot date. So that's it. You can see now that it says today, then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, etc. So that's it for the hourly forecast and 20 days forecast. The only thing we'll have to do is we need to grab this, or to drag this and scroll horizontally. Now I can't scroll horizontally, so let's do that. Now let's make these widgets horizontally scrollable. So I'm gonna go into the components and then create another component called horizontally scrollable .js, and that's my component. Now this component will be a higher order component, so it's gonna take in some children or other components and just like render them. So I'm just gonna call this, or just pass in the children. Let's get rid of the import here. Now let's go back to our forecast. Now this is the dev we want to be scrollable, horizontally scrollable. So what I'm going to do is, instead of dev, let's say horizontally scrollable, and that's going to be imported automatically. Let's copy this down and paste it in here, and that's it. Now let's go and save, and we have a problem here. So that's not what I have to use horizontally scrollable, so we need it here. Let's hit save, and that's it. And messed up our CSS. That's because we're not using the class name yet. So let's go back to here and then use class name prop, and then for the dev, let's use class name. That's going to be class name. If I hit save, you can now see it there. Let's actually get some space. Now I would like to make this class name here optional. So if we didn't pass any class name, it's going to be just an empty string. Now then let's go and make this actually horizontally scrollable. So the first thing I'm going to do is I want to select this element here. So I'm going to use ref and then the use ref hook by React. So that's how I'm going to select this dev. So I'm going to put the ref here and say ref, or let's just call it something else. Let's call this scroll ref, and then hit save. Now let's go and create a function const called handle mouse down. It's going to take an event here, and that event will be the event for when I click on inside this dev here. So let's just call on mouse down here and then pass in the function handle mouse down. So there are some properties we need to know about. For example, let's say console log event that page X. So if I go and open the console, it says here each child in a list should have a unique key. So let's go back to forecast. So this one here should have a unique key. Let's fix that first. So I'm going to use single data that date if it's hourly forecast widget, or I can use single data that day if it's daily forecast. I'm gonna hit save. Let's go back here, open the console, refresh, and we don't have that error anymore. So let's go now and click on here so you can see that this is where I have clicked. If I click here, it's almost 0. So this is the left or the scroll left of this element here. So let's go and console log the scroll ref that current. So this is actually now this element here. So then let's say scroll left. Let's go and see what we're going to get. So if I click here, you can see that the X position of the click has changed, but the scroll left is always the same because we didn't scroll this element here. So what I'm going to do is I need to save this to here, and whenever I scroll, I'm going to know how far by I drag the element and then subtract that from this value here. So let's go and save these as a const. So page X, or let's call this the old X, I guess, and then I'm gonna call this const scroll left, and that's it. And now let's see what's going to happen when I click and then move the cursor. So I'm gonna create a function called handle mouse move. It's gonna also take an event. So const, and let's call this the offset. So I'm going to get the new X here. So let's call this const new X position of the click once I drag or move the cursor. And then this will be just the new X, the offset, by how much I moved the cursor. So new X minus all X position. And if you think about it, this offset, this is the amount with I move the cursor, is going to be the same thing as the amount that I will move the scroll left of my element. So I'm just going to go and get that and then say this equal to the old scroll left minus the offset. So this is the old scroll left and this is the offset by which I want to change that scroll left. Now I'm going to hit save, and now all I need is to add an event listener to the handle mouse move. So I'm going to add that inside the function. So I'm going to add that to the window, add event listener. It's going to be on mouse move, and then handle. I'm going to call the function handle mouse move. Let's go now and try that. So if I click and drag, you can see that it's moving. Now let's go and try if that works. Now if I click and scroll or change the X position of the mouse, you can see that we can now scroll horizontally that element. But the only problem now, if I release the mouse, you can still scroll that element, which is not great. So we're going to fix that by just like going and removing this event listener. So I'm going to go and add an event listener window that add event listener. So on mouse up, I'm going to call a function called handle mouse up, and that function is a function that I will create just here, handle mouse up, and all it's going to do is just remove these event listeners. So I'm going to add a remove event listener to the window, and I'm going to remove the mouse move event listener. So handle mouse move and hit save. Now if I go, you can see that whenever I go and release the mouse, we don't scroll the element anymore. So this is working perfectly. We can do the same thing for this one here. Now I also want to remove this handle mouse up, even if I don't have to, but we still need to do cleaning up the event listener. So let's go and just grab this here. So instead of adding this, let's go and remove that event listener. And that's it for handling horizontally scrolling the elements. Now let's handle changing or toggling the theme. So I'm going to go into the source folder and create a new one called context. And then inside I'm going to create a theme.context.js file. Now I'm going to go and create the theme context, which is going to be equal to create context from React. And then I'm going to create a function that's going to be our provider. So let's just call this theme provider. And it's basically a higher order component. So I'm going to get the children here and then return them back. So I'm going to use the theme context.provider, and then inside we will render the children. That's it. Now we need to pass down the values from the context to these children. So I'm going to use value here. Now let's go and create the values we want to pass down. First is set dark. So if this value here is true, we're going to use the dark mode. If it's false, we're going to use the light mode. So I'm going to use state here and then set this to true by default. And now what I'm going to do is to go and check if the user has changed the theme or not, if we have saved it to the local storage or not, and get that theme back. So I'm going to use effect. And inside of here, I want to check if const is or saved theme, if we have a saved theme in the local storage. Let's get some space. So I'm going to say local storage dot get item, and I'm going to need to use a key. So let's just go to the top here and let's call this theme, then key, and then let's call this theme and use that. So I'm going to hit save. Now if we use get item, if there is this item in the local storage, this will return that item value. But if this is not in the local storage, the get item will return null. So I'm going to check if saved theme is not null. This means that we have saved the theme. So we want to set whatever was that theme, say theme, to our dark state here. And then we need to return. We won't do anything else. And I want to run this once. Now, if this is not the case, if we didn't save anything, this means that the user is visiting the application for the first time. So what I want to do is I'm going to check their system theme. So I'm going to check if they're using a system theme dark. Are they using a dark theme or not? So I'm going to use the window, then that match media. So what I want to match is this. So prefers, and then dark. I'm gonna hit save and then use dot matches. Now I'm going to go and set dark here to whatever this was. If it was true, I'm gonna set it to true. If it was false, I'm gonna set it to false. Now if it's true, that's great. If this returns undefined, I don't want to use undefined here. So I want to use either true or false. So I want to make sure that's true or false using this operator equal. So set dark is system theme dark equals true. Now let's go and console log, is system theme dark or not. Let's check actually console log. Before that, we first need to export the theme provider and the theme context. I'm going to export the theme provider and then export default the theme context. Now let's go and use these. So I'm going to go into the index.js file and let's go and import the theme provider from context, then theme context. Now let's wrap our app inside that. So theme provider, and we pass in the app. Now all the values from theme provider are going to be accessible from every component in our app. Now let's go to the header, and inside the header we will use the theme inside the settings. So inside the settings here, let's go and get the dark value equals use context, and we're going to get the weather context. So let's go and import that. So import weather context from context, then theme context. Now let's go and check the value of the is theme here. So let's go back to theme context. So we console log in this is system theme dark. So yeah, it's true. So I'm using that. Let's go and change that to the light theme. So here, if I change this to the light theme and I'm going to refresh, now it says false. So based on that, we're going to choose the theme of the application. So I'm going to go to the before going to the settings, I want to pass down dark value here. And now let's go to the settings. So this is where I will actually change the dark value. So I will also need to send down set dark to change the value of the dark state. Now actually I need to go to the app. So this is where I will use the dark here instead of just this hard-coded value. So I'm going to use context and then the weather context. So let's go and import that. So import weather context from context, then theme context. This is not actually with the context, this is theme context. My mistake. So let's go here and change that as well. So this is theme context. And now we need actually to destructure this value here. Now if I refresh, because I'm still using the light theme, this is now in using the light theme. Now let's go and change my system to the dark theme. Now if I refresh, it's now using the dark theme. Now it's time to toggle the theme using this button here. So let's go into the settings. Now I'm gonna go and add an event listener to the theme buttons. So I'm going to use an onClick event. So I'm going to go and call a function called toggle theme. Let's create that here. So const toggle theme. So all I need to do here is to change the value of dark from the old value to the not old value. So I'm going to use set dark. So prev dark value to not prev dark value. So I need to bring in the set dark method. Now I need to use the dark here to also show the appropriate icon. So light theme here, let's use JavaScript and some backticks here. And then I'm going to add to check if the dark is true, then I want to add nothing here. If it's false, then I want to make this active. Now let's go and copy the whole thing to save some time. Now this is going to be dark, and then it's going to be the opposite, so active and not active. Now let's go and check if that's working. So if I click, you can see that we are changing the theme alongside with the appropriate icon. Now the problem here, if I refresh, it's going to use the dark theme again. That's because I didn't save the theme. So let's go and call a function called save theme to local storage, and we're basically going to send not dark, the opposite. So I'm going to get this from the context, and let's go and create that function. So in the theme context, I'm going to send that down and then create it here at the top. So const, it's going to get the theme, and then let's go and use the local storage that set item. I'm going to use the same key, of course, the same key we used to get the item, and then the value is going to be the theme, and hit save. Now if I go and change this and then refresh, it didn't work. So I'm going to go and open the application here, local storage, so it's false. And why this is not working, let's go to the console and console log the saved theme value. Console log saved theme value. If I hit refresh, so this is false. This is actually a string, not false. So what I want to do is I'm going to go and use here the JSON that parse to parse the value saved there. So if I refresh now, it's now using the dark theme. Now you can see that false here is not a string anymore. And to be persistent, let's go and do the same thing when we're saving the theme to local storage. So I'm going to use JSON.stringify the value, and let's refresh. Let's change this to dark theme, refresh, and it sticks. And that's it for the theme toggler. Now it's time to create the weather context. So I'm going to go to the context, then a new file called weather.context.js. So let's go and create our weather context, and that's going to be the create context from React. And I don't know why this is using require. We need to use from React, and I'm going to say import create context. Now let's go and create our function provider. So weather provider, and this will return the weather context provider, and then here we will go and render the children. That's what we're going to destructure from props. So again, we need to send the values down to other components, and here I'm going to use or to create a state called place, set place to change its value, and then it's going to be use state. Now we will have a default place. So default place is going to be London. Let's go and get this from the API website. So I'm gonna go and click on find places, then params, then let's search for London, and then test endpoint. The first one is the London city. Copy all the properties, and then I'm gonna go into the source folder, create a utils folder, and then inside an index.js file. Now let's go and export our default place, which is going to be an object. I need to add some comments here. So export const default place. Now this object or every place will have a name, place ID, ADM area 1, ADM area 2, then the country. These are what we need in our project. So I'm going to go to the weather.context.js. I'm going to send this down the place. Now let's go and export the weather provider, and then export default the weather context. That's it. Now let's go and use the place here instead of hard coding it. So if you remember, it's going to be in the header and then in the place. So let's go and grab that. So place, then it's going to be equal to use context from React and then the weather context. Now the problem is that the weather context is not yet accessible because we need to wrap our app inside the weather provider. So let's go into the index.js here and then import weather provider, and now wrap the app inside the weather provider. Now its default place is not defined, so we have created that, but we didn't import it. So let's import from utils. We need to import the default place, and that's it. Now let's go into the place.js. Instead of just like hard code in London here, let's go and say the place.name. Yeah, and it's working. For the country, it's going to be the place.country, and that's it. We need a space here, I guess. So add the space, and that's it. That's it for the place. Now let's go and create some other state here. Const loading, and then set loading. Let's use state and then set this to true. So when the application runs for the first time, we need to set loading to true until the weather is loaded. So I'm going to send this down, and then let's go back to our main here. So this is where we need to actually use that loading. So loading, if it's true, I want to show the loading, or the loader. Let's call this the loader, and else let's go and show all the components. Now we need to bring in the loading from the context. Call const loading, then equals use context, and then the weather context. Now we need to create this component here. So let's go into components, create a loader component.js. Let's create that component, and let's import its CSS. The most important thing in this loader is CSS. So let's go into styles, then components, and then the loader.css. So I'm going to use a class name here, loader, and then another one, loader, not capitalized, and I'm gonna hit save. Now let's go back to the main. Let's import loader from and that's it. So you can see now this spinner or this loader here. Now because this is now true, we're showing this. Once the data is loaded, this will be false, and we're going to show the current weather forecast and the hourly forecast and the daily forecast. So let's go back to our weather.context.js file, and now I need to create const the current weather data set current weather equals use state, and it's going to be an object. Now for the other ones, so we have the hourly forecast data, and then set hourly forecast data, and it's going to be an array. Same thing for this one. So daily forecast and set daily forecast. And now let's get the current weather, hourly forecast, daily forecast from the API. So now we're making a real request. So let's go and use effect to do that. And then I'm going to create an async function because I'm going to do an asynchronous operation. So async function get weather data. I'm going to actually call this underscore get weather data. And then I'm going to go and first set loading to true. So I want to set this back to true. And then after I finish the loading, I will set this to false. So what I want to do here is I want to get the current weather, the hourly forecast, and daily forecast all in here. But first, let's go to the API here, index.js. I'm not going to go and use these files anymore. So I'm just going to go now and remove everything, I guess, and then create a function called get weather data without the underscore. And now this function will be an async function as well. This function will need 3 parameters. The first one is the end point, the second one is the place ID, and the last one is the measurement system. The measurement system. Yeah, that's it. So let's go back to the weather API. So let's go, for example, and click on current. You can see here that it says current for the endpoint. The hourly, it says hourly. The daily says daily. So that's all we need. So we need the same code here, except that we're going to change the just this daily, hourly, and current. And let's go back to our API. And then inside of here, I'm going to paste everything. I'm going to move the import of Axios to the top and then hit save. So can resolve Axios, so we need to go and run npm i Axios. So now that we have installed Axios, let's close this. And now instead of daily, we're going to use our endpoint. So let's use a template literal here. Let's use endpoint. And now for the params, we're going to use the place ID. And let's send the place ID. I actually don't need to do that. And for the units, I'm going to use the measurement system. And I guess that's it. Now let's go and return response data instead of console log in it. For the errors, I'm gonna go just and console them. So that's it for the get weather data, I guess. Now let's go and export it. Let's use export here instead. So export. Now let's go to the weather context.js and let's go and import our function get weather data from API, from the API. So I'm gonna call here, so let's say const current weather equals await get weather data, and I'm gonna pass in the daily endpoint, and then it's going to be the place ID. So this is the place object, then the place ID. For the measurement system, let's say auto for now. And once we get the current weather, we're going to use set current weather and then current weather dot current. That's it for the current weather. Now let's go and say const, let's get the hourly forecast. So await get weather data. The endpoint is going to be hourly, the place is going to be the place.place ID, and then it's going to be auto for the measurement system. Then const or set hourly forecast, and it's going to be hf.hourly.data. hf here. I'm just gonna go and duplicate this. Const daily forecast, get weather data, it's gonna be daily here, and then place ID, then auto, set hourly forecast, and we're done. I guess we need to say here daily instead of hourly, and the F here. So now I guess I need to use set daily forecast instead of set hourly forecast. And that said, here we need to use daily, hourly, and daily, not daily, but we need to use current here instead. So current, then hourly, then daily. Now let's go and call this function, but first we need to pass this down. So in here, so let's paste everything. Now let's go, before we call the function, let's go into our forecast, our main, and main here. So I already using the context here, so let's go and get the current weather, daily forecast, and then the hourly forecast. That's all we need. Now let's go and send this data here. Instead of get hourly forecast, let's go and send daily forecast, or here daily forecast. This is going to be hourly forecast. Let's and send data here. Let's send current weather. So I'm going to get rid of this. Let's go now into the current weather. So I'm not going to use this. Let's just destructure the data and use here data, and that's it. I don't need this function here. And now what I need to do is to call the function here. So we're going to set load intro, get the weather data, set current weather, etc. And then at the end, set loading false. So everything is looking great. Let's call the function. Let's see if we have any errors. So let's do a console log, CW. Oh, come on, we need to use an array here. So we actually need to call this effect only when the place changes. So I can see now that we have now real data from the API. So we have the hourly forecast, the daily forecast, and the current weather. That's great. So everything's working. I don't need this one anymore. And now it's time to go and work with the settings and the measurement system. And now let's go and make the button settings work. So I'm gonna go to the components folder, then settings, and then just after the settings button, I'm gonna add another div with the class name settings menu, and then inside I'm going to add a div with the class name measurement systems, and then after that I'm going to add an h4, and it's gonna say measurement systems. I'm gonna hit save, and let's go and add the class name open here to open it. So you can see that if we add this class name, it will be opened. If we remove that, it will be closed. So let's take care of that using the state, the use state hook. So I'm going to create open settings, then set open settings, use state, by default it will be false. And now let's go and use openState to determine the state of this dev here. So openSettings, then $. So if the openSettings is true, then I'm going to add open, else it's going to be nothing. So now it's false. If I click on the gear here, settings button, let's add an unclick. And I'm basically going to toggle, so set open settings. I'm going to toggle the prev value, the preval, to not preval. So if it was true, I'm going to set it to false. Now if I click on this, you can see that I can open and close the settings menu. Now I also want to make this icon a fill icon when the settings are open. So I'm just going to go here and grab this code and put it inside here. I'm going to copy the whole thing, use some color braces, some backticks, and then paste in that. So if open settings is true, I want to add that fill. If it's false, I'm not going to add anything. So you can see now that the icon is the fill icon. If I click on it, that's great. Now let's complete the measurement systems. So now at the bottom here, I want to go and render all the systems. So I'm just going to go and add first a div with the class name systems, and here I will go and render the measurement systems. Now I will go and create a constant that have all the measurement systems. Now to get them, or to know all the measurement systems we have, we need to go to the API documentation. So in the Meteosource documentation page, we can see here the units, and we have auto, metric, US, UK, and CA for Canada. So these are the measurement systems are available by Meteosource. So I'm just going to go and use a constant that has all of them, and that's what I will show here in the measurement system. So let's go to the utils folder, and one thing that I want to do is I'm not going to call this utils because it has only the constants, so I'm going to call it constants. So constants is a better name, constants. And I shall go to the context with the context. Now this is not utils anymore, it's constants. If I hit save, everything is working just fine. Now let's go back to our constants, and let's create and export a constant that I'm just gonna copy over, and it's going to be the measurement systems. So we have autometric, UK, US, and CA. So I'm gonna hit save. Now let's go to the settings and let's import that. So import from constants. I want to import the measurement systems. Let's copy that and go to the bottom. So the measurement systems, now I need to go and use object.values of the measurement systems. So why is that? Because I want to access an object or iterate an object. This is not an array, this is an object, and I want to show these values and not the keys. So these are the keys, these are the values. If you want to access the measurement systems values, you need to use object.values. If you want to access the keys, you want to use object.keys. So this will return an array of all the measurement systems object values. Then I'm going to use map. So for every system, I want to render that system. So a div with the class name system. And then inside, I'm going to render the system. I'm going to hit save. Now let's go and open this, and you can see them there. Now, of course, I need to add a key to the div. So the key is going to be a system, and also I want to select one of these. So if I add the active class here, they were all active. So we want to activate just the one that we are using. So before doing that, we need first to get the system the user is using. So let's take care of that. So I'm going to go back to the weather context. So this is our context, then weather context. So here I will take care of the measurement system, and then set measurement system equals use state. And the measurement system I want to use by default is going to be the auto measurement system. So let's go and bring our measurement systems here, and then I'm going to set this to dot auto. So now the default measurement system is going to be auto. So let's go and send this, both the measurement system and the set measurement system, to the settings component. So if I go back now to the settings, let's go and use the context here. So const, I'm gonna get the measurement system and set measurement system. So both of them, then use context and then the weather context. I'm gonna hit save. Let's now use the measurement system value to check which one is active here. So I'm gonna go and use some backticks here to write JavaScript code. So I'm going to check if this system, here, these ones here, if the system is the same as the measurement system, then that's the one to be active. Else it's not gonna be active. So you can see now that auto is activated. Now let's go and add an onClick event here. So to the same div when I click on it. So if I click now on it, nothing's happening. So what I want to do is add an onClick event. So let's go and create a function called change measurement system. So this function I need to create here. So const change measurement system. What I want to do is pass in the system here and then set measurement system to that system. And we actually need to go to the bottom to pass in the measurement system. So now let's go and click on this. You can see that now it's been selected. That's great. Now whenever I select one of these, I want to close the settings. So let's use set open settings to false. So if I click on this, it's going to be closed once I choose the system I want. Now that we have finished with selecting the measurement system, let's go to the next step. And now let's go and take care of the units. So we already know that we only hard coded these. So now we need to actually get the units from the API. So I'm going to go to the weather context and let's go and create another state. So it's going to be called units, and then set units, use state. The default value is going to be an empty array. So we need to get the units we're going to be using from the API. So is it the metric system, the UK, the US, etc. So how can we get that? So I'm gonna go first to the constant folder. So and then the index.js. This is where we have all the constants, and I need to create another constant called units where I have all the units. So I'm just going to copy that over. So this is a very long one. So we have the unit object, which has metric, US, UK, just the ones we have here. So whenever I select one of these, I'm going to go and select the units, then that one I selected here. So I have the appropriate unit for each of the info we show here to the user. So for the temperature, for the precipitation, the wind speed, the visibility, etc. So I'm going to save this. Now let's go back into the weather context and let's bring that in. So I'm going to bring in the units. And now how do I select the unit I want is I'm gonna go into use effect. Then when I get the weather data, so get current weather, so this is where I will console log this object here to see what we get. So let's go and open the console. So we get an object and we have here the current, that's what we show here. Then we have here the units, it says UK. So that's the one we're going to be using. So I'm going to console log that unit. You can see we have UK. So that's the one we need to select from our units object here. So I'm going to select units.uk. So how do I do that? I'm just gonna go and use units and then some square brackets and CW units. Now let's go and console log that to see what we get. And now let's save and see what we're going to get. So if I open the console, let's refresh, and you can see here the object, it has the units that we need to use in our application. So I'm gonna go and close this. Let's go back here, and then instead of just console log them, we need to set this to our units here. So let's go and use set units. Now I'm gonna hit save, and then I'm gonna pass down the units. So I can use it in the current weather, the hourly forecast, the days forecast or daily forecast. So let's go to this component. So the components current weather first, and let's go and get, so const the units equals use context and the weather context. So let's bring that in, import weather context from context, then weather context, hit save. Now let's use the units here. So here I'm going to say units dot precipitation. Then here it's going to be units dot speed. Then units dot humidity. Then units dot UV index, then units dot cloud cover, and then units dot visibility. The units about temperature, same thing for this one, units dot temperature, and I'm gonna hit save. The one for the wind is not working, so wind, so units dot wind, not speed. I'm gonna go back to the constants. So units dot wind speed. So wind, got the current weather, and then used wind speed, and that's it there. Now let's go into our context, theme context, and now I want to go and this is the theme context, sorry. So I'm gonna go to the weather context. So now I want to get the data from the API when the place changes or when the measurement system changes. And now that I have the measurement system, I'm not going to set this to auto anymore. I'm going to set this to the measurement system the user is using. I'm going to hit save. Now if I go here and I'll click on this, use for example US, this will load the weather and now it's in Fahrenheit, the imperial system. And that's great. Now let's still apply the units to these two components. So I'm going to go to the daily forecast, and then I'm going to go and use context, and then the weather context, and I'm going to get the units. Now let's go and use that. So for the temperature, it's going to be units.temperature. The same thing for the other one. And here it's going to be the units.precipitation. I'm going to hit save, and you can see that it has been changed. Now it's in Fahrenheit and inch per hour for precipitation. Let's do the same thing for hourly forecast. So const units equal use context, and then the weather context. Now, so for the temperature, units.temperature, units.precipitation, and they're here units wind speed. I'm gonna hit save, and you can see that has been changed. And now that I'm done with the units, let's go now and talk about the search component. And now let's take care of the search input. So I'm going to go to the components, then the search component, and then under the search input, I'm going to go and create a div with the class name search results, and then another one called results container. And this is where I will render all the places that I will get from the API. So each result will be in a div with the class name result. Let's say test. So now you can see that there. So if I have more than one, you can see all the places. Now I'm going to remove this and put this inside equal braces. Now let's go and get the data from the API. So we need to open Rapid API again. So here is the page of the API we're using. So I'm going to go to location endpoints. I'm going to click on find places. So this is what we're going to be using. Then go to params, and then let's, for example, say new, and then test endpoint. So when I click on that, this will return an array. So we have here these objects are a single place. So we have the place ID of that place. We have ADM area 1, which is important, and we have the country, which is also important. So these are the three things that we're going to show. So the name of the place, this ADM area 1, and then the country. That's what we're going to show in our search results. So I'm going to go into code snippets and then copy the whole thing, or just the options. I'm going to copy this. Let's go back here and go to the API folder, then index.js. And let's create another function. So it's going to be an async function, and it's going to be search places. And then it's going to take a text, and then we will create the options. So here, instead of text new, I'm just going to pass in our text here. And then what I will do is get response here. Instead of console log in this, let's go and return the data. Now let's go and export this function. And let's go back to search component, and let's go and import that function. Import from API. So search places. Now let's go and add or make this a controlled component. So I'm going to go and use state. So let's say text, then set text equals use state, and it's going to be an empty string. So here I'm going to say the value is going to be text. So now this one here, the input value is controlled by this state here. Then I'm going to use an onChange event to change this. So I'm going to set text to e.target value. And because I want to search the places whenever the user changes the value of text, I'm going to go and create a function called change, or let's call this onSearch. So I'm going to call a function or create a function called onSearch. It's going to take the event and then set text, our target here. So whenever I change the value of the input, this will trigger this function that will set text e.target.value. Now I will use this text here to fetch the API. So I'm going to use our function here, search places. I'm going to pass in the same thing, and that's going to be the search text. And now because this is an asynchronous function, let's make this as well an async function. And we need to go and wait so for the data to come in. So await, so const data await search places. And once we get the data from the search places, we need to save those, or the data, to, let's say, search results, and set search results, and then use state, and it's going to be an empty array for the default value. So now I'm just going to go and use set search here, and then set this to, and then set the data to search results. Now if I go and use the search results here, so let's use search results.map and then render every result. So every result, or let's call this place, and let's take this to the top. And here I'm going to render the place that name, and then the place, and then the place that ADM area 1, and then the place that country. And now let's go and use a key here. So I'm going to use the place ID because it's unique, and let's check if this works. So I'm going to click on here. So let's say N and New York, and it's working just fine. Now if I remove everything, we don't have anything shown, and I guess that's great. Now let's go and click on this. So whenever I click on a city or a place, I want to select that. So let's go and run an onClick event here. So change place. So let's create that function, const change place. So what I want to do here is I want to go and set the place. So I want to use the context here, const get set place equals use context with a context, and let's bring in that. So import with a context from context with a context. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, so set place, let's go to the context with a context. So this is what we need here, set place. Let's go and actually send that down. So set place is what we need to use to change the place and then reload or fetch the data or the weather data for that place. Now let's go to the search component. So I'm going to use set place here, set place, and I'm going to need to get the place object. So here I'm going to send that to the place object, so or the place object to change place function. Now set place, and once I click on that place, so once I click on it, I want this to be set to I want to clear the input, so I'm going to set text to an empty string. Now if I click on this, that has changed the country, but you can see that we can't close this menu here. So what I'm going to do is I'm gonna go and add another state, so open search results and set open search results equals use state, and by default it's going to be false, and let's use that here. So I'm going to say if that's true, then I will go and render this. And now let's go and in the change place, so whenever I click on a place, I need to set search open results to false, and whenever I get new data from the API, I want to set this to true. So whenever I search for something, I want to actually show this. But what if the data is empty? If we don't have any search, I don't want to set open search to true, so I want it to remain false. So I'm just gonna go and set that data length here to the set open search result. So if the data length is 0, means no data, this will be false. If we have at least 1, it's going to be true, and we will show the search results dev. So I'm going to hit save. Let's go here and search for London. You can see how we get the results. Now if I click on this place, you can see that we have selected the place and closed the search results. Now let's go and search for New York again. Let's click on this, and you can see how we have the weather data, and everything is working just fine. And I think that's it for searching a place. Now let's go and protect our API key. So I don't want to go and put the API key here, so whenever I push to the repo, this will get pushed as well. So I don't want anyone to see this. So we need to go to the root of our application and then create a .env file, and this is where I will create my API key. So API key equals, then let's go and print this, the API key, cut that out and set it here to the API key. Now for this to work in a React project, you need to start all your API keys or all your variables with React app. Now I'm gonna hit save. Let's go and use that. So here, instead of the API key, I'm going to use API key here. This is just a variable I'm gonna create in a minute. Same thing here. So API key, and then I'm gonna go to the top and define this constant. So I'm going to say const then API key equals then our env file process.env and then our variable name. So let's just copy that and then paste it in there and hit save. Now if I go and console log the API key, it's going to be undefined, and that's because we need to install a package called .env. So let's go and install it. So npm i.env, hit enter. Now that the package has been installed, let's go and check if that's working. So we will get undefined again. That's because we need to restart the server. So I'm going to get here, I'm going to stop the application and then npm start. Now if I open that, you can see now our API key is console logged, and that's what we needed. So now the last thing I want to do is I'm going to go into the git ignore here and then add a .env file. So that's the way that I will be sure that this won't be pushed to the repo. And now no one can see the env file, so they can't see our API key. And now let's do some final touches. So here, instead of using today, I want to use now. So let's go to components, then I will forecast widget, and then here I want to say now. That's it. Now if I go and scroll this element using the icons, this is what happens. Now if I release the button on the mouse, I can still scroll this. So to fix that, I'm going to go to the weather icon here and then add an attribute called draggable and set this to false. So I don't want the image to be draggable. So now if I drag, this can scroll the element. If I release the button on the mouse, we don't have the issue anymore. Now the second thing is this midnight time. So I just hard-coded that time. So let's go to hourly forecast again. So you can see here that I just hard-coded this. So I'm going to go here to the top, and instead of using this navigator.language, let's use a constant called local, and then set this to navigator.language, then remove this and use local instead. Same thing for this one, local. And now let's say I'm in the US. So if I go and comment this out and then use English US, you can see that it's saying now it's using the PM and EM, and we can't see the date here anymore. So because this doesn't match this format here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go and create a constant called midnight time. So I will determine the midnight time for each locale. So I'm going to go and actually get the whole thing from here. So I want to use the same locale, hour, two digits, minute, the same thing. Now here for the date, I'm going to use the now date. It doesn't matter. Then set hours. Then I'm going to set the hours to 0, the minutes, the seconds, etc. I'm going to hit save and then get rid of that comma. Now I'm going to use the midnight here instead of hard coding it. Let's go and hit save. Now you can see the date there because now this time here matches this midnight time here. Now let's go to the top, remove this string here, midnight, and use our navigator.language as the local. And that's it for the final touches. If you guys see that I need to do anything else, just put that in the comment below. And that's it for this video. See you in the next one. If you have learned something new, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share the video. Thank you.